At number 10, Hugh Grant. You don't really hear too much about Hugh Grant these days, so when I found out that he was banned from somewhere, I was actually pretty shocked. He was banned from The Daily Show after having a really bad interview that affected the show's host. Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, said in an interview that Hugh Grant was the absolute worst guest he'd ever had on the show. He spoke about how when Hugh was on to promote his film Did You Hear About the Morgans, Hugh was making a huge scene backstage and was really mean and annoying to the people who were working on set. Apparently, he was allegedly going around saying that he had better places to be. He also got really upset about the clip that they played from the film, saying, quote, "What is that clip? It is a terrible clip." To which Jon replied, telling Hugh to make a better movie. You could really tell that Jon was fed up with Hugh and his attitude on the show. Jon went on to say that because of his poor experience with Hugh, he would never have him back on his show. At number 9, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is known for being pretty outspoken and controversial at times, and it's because of her antics that she's been banned from just about every talk show. Because of her unpredictable actions, use of crude language, and her problematic past, she isn't welcome on shows like The View, The Today Show, Ellen, Regis and Kelly, Jay Leno, Letterman, and many others. She's racked up a lot of these bans over the years, but some new ones, like being fired from CNN, come from the backlash that she gained after the Donald Trump incident where she posed with a fake bloodied model of Donald Trump's head. She's been known to ruffle people's feathers on live TV and pull stunts that are inappropriate for broadcast. For example, during her time hosting the New Year's Eve special with Anderson Cooper on CNN, she used profanity and even removed some of her clothing on TV. On top of that, she's offended people during award shows while making speeches and making inappropriate comments. Though she's been banned from certain TV shows, I really think that people just want her banned from the media in general because of her actions. Now, before I carry on talking about more celebrities banned from late night programs, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really helps the channel out and we appreciate you guys supporting our platform. At number 8, Harmony Korine. I think it's common knowledge, at least to most people, that when you're a guest somewhere, you should try and be on your best behavior. Most people follow this unspoken rule, but many others don't, especially celebrities, as we will see throughout this list. One person who really should have tried to behave themselves is director Harmony Korine, who's best known for the movie Spring Breakers. There was once a time when Harmony made a number of appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman in the mid to late 90s. This was also during a time when Harmony was reportedly on a lot of drugs. Though he was a frequent guest on the show, his appearances just stopped all of a sudden and no one really knew why until 2013 when Letterman revealed the truth as to why the director was banned from coming on the show. Apparently, Letterman caught the director going through Meryl Streep's purse one time, and that was just the last straw for the late night host. When talking about this fateful event, Letterman said, quote, "I went upstairs to greet Meryl Streep and welcome her to the show. I knocked on the door and she wasn't there. I looked around and found Harmony going through her purse. True story. And so I said, that's it, put her things back in her bag and then get out." End quote. After that, Harmony was no longer welcome on the show and has not been back since. At number 7, Bobcat Goldthwait. I think that this goes without saying, but don't go setting fire to random things. I know Adele said set fire to the rain, but that was just a metaphor. Clearly though, one guest on Jay Leno didn't quite get the memo because they ended up setting a fire during their interview on The Late Night Show. Back in 1994, actor Bobcat Goldthwait was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during his guest appearance, the actor decided to randomly set fire to his chair. At the time, Jay thought that this was just a spontaneous bit, but in reality, Bobcat came prepared for this as he brought lighter fluid and a lighter that was hidden up his sleeve. Luckily, the other guest who was there that night, Lauren Hutton, was quick on her feet and doused the flames with a cup of water. Jay, understandably, was very unhappy with all this and banned Bobcat from the show. Not only that, but the actor was also charged with arson for his stunt and was ordered to pay over $3,300 in fines, some of which went towards replacing the chair that he set fire to. Not too sure why he decided to make this interview go up in flames like that, but at least he won't be able to pull that stunt again. At least not with Jay. At number 6, Dax Shepard. Actor and comedian Dax Shepard has been very open about his struggles with substance abuse for some time now. He's opened up about some of the lowest points in his career that was caused by his substance abuse, including one time that got him banned from a late night show. Dax told the story about how he was once preparing to be on Late Night with Conan O'Brien in 2004, but when he was doing the pre-interview, he blacked out. Dax didn't remember any of the pre-interview where he was supposed to go over the talking points for the evening, and by the time his real interview started, he was so lost. He went into detail saying, quote, "I show up on the show and I don't know what he's talking about. I can tell he's queuing me up for stories I've told, but I don't know any of the stories." End quote. Because of how badly he messed up his interview, he was banned from the show for a few years until he got sober. Years later, he was welcomed back on the show and all was forgiven, but it was still a low point for the actor. At number 5, Jay Leno. This next ban was caused by one serious feud between Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. Because both men men were talented late night hosts, there were a lot of pitches from different networks trying to poach one or the other to take over talk shows and whatnot. Well, things got kind of heated when Conan was promised the hosting gig for The Tonight Show when Jay's contract was up. As you would imagine, Jay didn't take the news very well, and so he decided to start his own show, The Jay Leno Show, which aired before Conan's. Well, when neither of their shows were bringing in good ratings, the network reshuffled the time slots, gave Conan's slot to Jay, and bumped Conan's show back half an hour. Conan didn't like that, took a payout, and The Tonight Show fell back into Jay's hands. Later on, when asked if he would have Jay on an episode of his show, Conan shut that down, essentially saying that Jay would have been banned from his program. There was just a lot of bitterness between them, and the water under that bridge has certainly dried up. At number 4, Gary Busey. A lot of people enjoy their personal space. I know that there are many people who love getting close to others and who are very physical people, but you know, not everybody likes that. Getting upset when someone invades your personal space without permission is pretty understandable, and this notion is what got Gary Busey banned from the Howard Stern Show. Back in 2001, actor Gary Busey was on the Howard Stern Show and seemed to have ignored the notion of personal space, and that rubbed Howard the wrong way. While on the show, the actor picked up Howard's co-host, Robin Quivers, giving him a big bear hug, and even chased Howard around the studio trying to wrestle him. Howard really didn't like what Gary was doing that day, and so he promptly banned him from coming back on the show. When Gary explained the motives behind his actions, he blamed it on his quote, 13 separate personalities. He continued to say that he was just really excitable that day, but that wasn't a good enough excuse to get him back onto the show until 2017, when he was invited to do an audio-only interview with Howard. At number 3, Howard Stern. But speaking of Howard Stern, he himself has been banned from a late night show. Apparently, he and Jay Leno have had beef ever since Howard's 1995 appearance on The Tonight Show. This appearance was pretty chaotic. Howard entered onto the show with 2 women in bikinis and prompted the women to start kissing each other on air. On top of that, Howard kept speaking over Jay and other guests while on the show as well. Jay was apparently so fed up with Howard and his antics that he nearly walked off set, and was so mad about the way that the show turned out that evening that he later called into Howard's show to say that he had, quote, gone beyond the acceptable standards. After that, Howard was banned, and he and Jay have had beef ever since. At number 2, Donald Trump. Now, to find out that Donald Trump has been banned from any kind of talk show really isn't all that surprising. So many hosts from various shows have banned the former president, but this next ban is a little juicier because it kind of involves some beef between the Donald and late night host Seth Meyers. In 2016, the late night talk show host issued a ban against Donald Trump in retaliation for Trump having revoked Seth's Washington Post credentials. Though it was an official ban, it was also done as a joke since Seth already knew that Donald would never be on a show anyway, but it was about the principle. In a joke statement to Donald, Seth said, quote, "We instituted this ban despite the fact that he's never been here or asked to be here or would never be caught dead here. I just think that it takes an amazing amount of courage on our part. So the ball is in your court, Donald. Either rescind your Washington Post ban or you're not allowed to appear on the show you have no interest in appearing on. Although maybe now that you can't have it, you're changing your mind." End quote. And finally, at number 1, Oprah Winfrey. This last ban seems to have been more so self-imposed. After making an appearance on David Letterman's show in 1989, Oprah Winfrey issued a self-imposed ban, refusing to go back on Letterman's show. After what she experienced on the show, Oprah and Letterman seem to have had some kind of feud going on, though it was more low-key than others. As for what happened to cause this self-imposed ban, well, Oprah finally opened up about the event that caused this back in 2013, saying, quote, "It was a terrible experience for me. The guy in the audience started yelling, 'Get her, Dave.' You were sort of baiting the audience and there were a bunch of drunk guys down the front. I was trying to mitigate the whole thing. It felt so uncomfortable for me. I didn't want to have that experience again." End quote. Basically, she was just really uncomfortable on the show and wanted to forget about the event, hence her minor beef with the late night host, and she just didn't want a repeat of that unpleasant experience. At number 10, Vivica A. Fox. You know, you don't always have to like everybody. It's okay not to be the biggest fan of someone, but for the sake of appearances, it might be a good idea to at least pretend like this person doesn't bother you. This could be extra good advice for celebrities as well. Because Hollywood is essentially one big show, having beefs with people isn't always the best thing for you, and watching 2 people who hate each other try to have a conversation can be painful as well. Take for example the bad blood between Vivica A. Fox and Jimmy Kimmel. To start, these 2 celebrities weren't the biggest fans of each other to begin with, but when the actress was on Jimmy Kimmel Live back in 2005, their bad blood started to really boil, and it led to the actress being banned from the show. The actress was on the show to promote her movie Missing, but things didn't go as smoothly as planned because as Jimmy made a joke about one of Vivica's friends, it made her upset and she ended up storming off the set, leaving Jimmy to finish the segment without his guest. Later on, he said that Vivica was one guest that he would never have back on the show. At number 9, Bill Hicks. Many times in Hollywood, we see people get in trouble for being too controversial. It's basically the backbone of cancel culture. Well, here's an example of someone being banned from a talk show for being so controversial that their segment was scrapped entirely. Comedian Bill Hicks made a number of appearances on Letterman between 1984 and 1993, but his 12th appearance on the show was scrapped after it was deemed too controversial to be aired. After that, a ban was issued. According to the comedian, Letterman as well as the audience didn't seem to have many issues with his set, but it was the show's executives who had the whole thing scrapped. This statement has been debated by some because a lot of people still took offense to some of the topics the comedian was discussing. Unfortunately, the comedian never got a chance to redeem himself on the show as he passed away a short time later. Now, before I carry on telling you guys about celebrities who've been banned from late night shows, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of our videos. At number 8, Madonna. It seems as though there's a good chunk of people who really don't like Madonna. There could be 1.5 million reasons why she and others do not always get along, but the bottom line here is that not everyone wants to be friends with the singer, especially Piers Morgan. There seemed to be some kind of one-sided beef with the singer that frankly I don't think she cares about too much, but Piers on the other hand had a lot to say about her. Morgan said that Madonna was banned from his program because she is, quote, boring and annoying. He also went on to say, quote, Madonna and I, we've never really seen eye to eye. There was a bread roll throwing incident in London in the mid-90s. There was an incident at a hotel in the south of France at the Cannes Film Festival involving a photographer and a bodyguard. There's been an incident involving a pub owned by her recently departed husband Guy Ritchie, where my brother was the manager, end quote. If you thought he was done with his commentary on the singer, you thought wrong. Piers also said that Madonna was too vegan for TV. Whatever that means. Either way, Madonna never responded to all of Piers's comments about her, so again, I think she remained pretty unfazed by the ban that he had put in place, but clearly the TV host had some pent-up aggression there. At number 7, Joan Rivers. Apparently, late-night TV host Johnny Carson and Joan Rivers had so much beef that he not only banned the comedian from his show, but he also refused to speak to her for the rest of his life. When Carson became the host of The Tonight Show in 1962, Joan was starting to rise to fame for her comedy. She and Carson became a pretty dynamic duo as she appeared in his late night show almost 100 times. She was hired as a writer and even became a guest host when Carson was away, but in the mid-80s that's when things started to turn bad as Joan was upset that NBC never offered her a long-term contract. When talks of Carson's retirement began, there was a list of potential candidates of who would replace him, and to her astonishment, Joan wasn't on that list. The silver lining there was that Fox later contacted her about having her own late night show, and she jumped at the opportunity. This made Johnny really mad because he felt like he was almost being blindsided by the whole thing. This caused them to have a pretty big falling out, which led to Joan being banned from her former friend's show. When speaking out about the drama between them, Joan went on to say, quote, I think he really felt because I was a woman that I was his, that I wouldn't leave him. I know this sounds very warped, but I don't understand otherwise what was going on. For years I thought that maybe he liked me better than the others, but I think that it was a question of I found you and you're my property. He didn't like that as a woman I went up against him, end quote. At number 6, Kelsey Grammer. I feel like when a celebrity asks for something specific, it should be given to them. I'm not talking about anything material like demanding a cup of ice chips or something. I mean a specific request in reference to the way that they are treated. For actor Kelsey Grammer, he made a very specific request when doing an interview with Piers Morgan, and when that request wasn't honored, there was a falling out that led to the actor being banned from the show. When the actor made a guest appearance on Piers Morgan Tonight back in 2012, he requested that a picture of his ex-wife not be shown. He was willing to answer questions about her, but just didn't want to have a photo of her be aired. Well, Piers didn't honor that request, and when a photo of his ex-wife was shown, Kelsey stormed off set. The actor's publicist said that Piers had to take accountability for his actions because Kelsey was so mad about the situation, but instead, Piers barred the actor from his show. That doesn't really seem like the right thing to do in that kind of situation, but okay. At number 5, Jackie Mason. I'm sure we are all aware of how sensitive TV networks are about what kinds of things get aired. Saying some kind of adult word can cause some serious consequences, but what about hand gestures? Well, it turns out that those are also against the rules, and someone had their whole career ended because of it. Comedian Jackie Mason had been working on the Ed Sullivan Show for a bit back in the day, and it made him pretty successful. He was given a contract for 6 appearances, which was set to earn him around $45,000, which is more like $350,000 in today's money, since this all happened back in the mid-60s. Either way, it was a very well-paying job for only having to do 6 appearances. Anyway, his entire contract was essentially ripped up after he got into some trouble for flipping the bird on stage. Jackie was playing off one of the stage managers who was making gestures with his fingers to indicate how much time he had left, but he went a little too far. As part of his little joke, he pointed his finger around the room saying, quote, "Here's a finger for you, and a finger for you, and a finger for you," end quote. This kind of behavior was not allowed, and so he was booted off the show and subsequently banned. At number 4, Artie Lang. When you're a guest on someone's show, the expectation for celebrities is that they stay alert, engaging, and on their best behavior. For comedian Artie Lang, it seems as though he didn't follow through with that unwritten rule and he got banned because of it. Lang had been struggling with substance abuse, and though he had appeared on Conan O'Brien's show a number of times, he ended up getting banned because the producer thought that he was under the influence of some kind of substance on his last appearance, so they told him that he wouldn't be welcome back on the show until he was clean and could prove it. The studio didn't want to risk anything if Artie kept coming back while he was still using, and so they did it for his own good as well as to save their own image as well. At number 3, Howie Mandel. If you watched America's Got Talent, then you know that Howie Mandel and Piers Morgan were judges together. Through the time that they worked together, Howie was known to play pranks on Piers, like using fart machines on him and setting up vending machine blockades. Although Howie thought that this was all in good fun, Piers on the other hand wasn't impressed with his co-workers' antics, and even going so far as to call Howie the quote, "most annoying man that he's ever met." End quote. Piers didn't like Howie so much that he ended up adding him to the list of celebrities who he had banned from his show. There was some bad blood there, but honestly, after learning about how many people Piers Morgan seemed to have beef with, this ban honestly doesn't even surprise me in the slightest. At number 2, Gilbert Gottfried. This ban has to be one of the most pointless bans I have ever heard of because it really wasn't necessary at all. Howard Stern banned Gilbert Gottfried from his show simply because the comedian went on another show. I know, I don't get it either. There wasn't even any bad blood between them. When Gottfried got cancelled after making insensitive tweets about the devastating tsunami that hit Japan in 2011, Howard even came to his defense online, so really no one knows what the motive behind this ban really was. I'm sure it can't really be because he went on another show because that is so absurd, but honestly, we may never know. And finally, at number 1, Gene Simmons. I think that we can all agree that Gene Simmons is somewhat outlandish. He's a guy with a lot of big energy and no filter, so when it comes to interviewing him live, you never know what he might say, but you can certainly hope that it won't be too offensive. At one point, the singer was a Fox favorite, making regular appearances on their programming where they would discuss hot topics in the world and would share their opinions on things. They liked the guy and they liked having him on their talk show, but after causing a stir during a meeting at Fox and making some crude comments towards some of the other staff members, Gene got banned for life, and it was a hot topic of its own. Some of the things that Gene said to some of the women at the network got leaked, and it's not something that you would want to have said to you, let's just put it that way. After all that went down, the singer was not welcome back on their programming, and honestly, I can't say I blame them.
Beginning the countdown, number 10 is Howie Mandel. Although he's a very successful comedian and a lot of people would defend his humor, there will naturally be people out there who just don't find him funny. He's also known for his rowdy and loud personality, and one person who isn't a fan of it is Piers Morgan. Turns out he didn't care for Howie's cheerful attitude and silly jokes, so he banned him from returning to his talk show. The comedian never really did anything to personally upset him, and there isn't some big drama to the story. He simply just didn't like him on the show. Piers said that Howie was too irritating to have on his show, and even went as far as calling him the most annoying man in the history of planet Earth. That makes it crystal clear, Piers Morgan. Clear as glass. You do not like Howie Mandel. Coming up next, number 9 is Madonna. At first it might be shocking to think that someone would ban the Queen of Pop herself, but there is one talk show she is permanently banned from. She too got banned from Piers Morgan, and he made sure that everyone knew about it. Back in 2011, he made a public statement saying that he would never allow her to return to a guest on his CNN show at the time. He called Madonna, I quote, "an irritant in my life for 20 years. So it sounds like they've had some beef for a while then. He said that she would only be invited onto his show if she made an apology to him on live television. There's been different rumor mills on why he dislikes her so much, but his exact reasons are still kind of unclear. He just said that she is responsible for a series of crimes against him, whatever that means. Rolling into the number 8 spot is Gilbert Gottfried. He's a talented comedian but is known for having a dark sense of humor, mainly insult comedy. He's been titled crude, inappropriate, inappropriate, but also hilarious. I think people's personal opinions on him would just vary depending on their sense of humor, which is fair because we all have our own sense of humor. But radio and television personality Howard Stern wasn't a fan of his comedy when he appeared on his talk show. The two of them got pretty heated with one another, and Howard said that he was being talked down to by Gilbert. He also took a joke too far and spit up cupcakes behind the scenes while the cameras were still rolling, and Howard just was kind of frustrated by it. He didn't really get it and he didn't find it funny. He was actually once a regular on his show, but he has never appeared on it since, and Howard does not have plans to bring him back. Moving on to number 7, we have Howard Stern. Well, isn't that just a funny little coincidence? What comes around goes around, I guess. He issued a few different bans on other celebrities, but was on the receiving end for one of them. It all came from his longtime feud with Jay Leno, which all started after Howard accused him of stealing bits from his own show. Not to mention the chaos in 1995 when Howard appeared on his show and brought 2 nearly naked women on stage and started sucking on their toes when Leno interviewed the next guests. He was so mad with this weird and erratic behavior that he actually ended the show early by walking off the stage. And at number 6 is the Kardashians. I am not going to name the girls off one by one because they all got banned from a show as a family, like a group coupon kind of deal. Like a Groupon. Back in 2012, during an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, the CNN news anchor Anderson Cooper was asked if there was anyone he would refuse to have on his show at the time. He responded with, "I'd say generally any member of the Kardashian family." There wasn't much of an explanation why, and people were actually confused because just a few hours before that interview, Khloe tweeted about how much she loves the newsman and even referred to him as a silver fox. Which is just awkward, because clearly y'all are not on the same page with one another. Halfway through at number 5 is Kathy Griffin, another comedian whose content focuses a lot on dark comedy and controversial subjects like religion, politics, and LGBTQ rights. So there is bound to be a few people that she offends or frustrates. Throughout her career, she's been banned from more talk shows than anyone else on this list, and they include The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, The View, Ellen, and The Late Show with David Letterman. The reasons vary from making derogatory comments all the way to taking her clothes off. True story. Video proof is still on YouTube. While she was on the David Letterman's talk show, she decided to take off her clothes on live television during their interview. She literally undid her dress, pulled it down, exposed her entire bra and her stomach, and the fact that she was not wearing underwear. True story, and then she had him zip it back up, and it's very uncomfortable to watch, but I think you should. Sliding into number 4 is Hugh Grant. How could anyone possibly ban the charming actor? I mean, am I right? Well, it is possible, and Jon Stewart banned him from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart back in 2009. He said his decision is justified though, and claimed that Hugh was extremely rude when he appeared on the show. He said he was cursing, complaining about everything, and people around him complained that he was annoying pretty much everyone on set. But down the road, the actor admitted that he was in a bad mood that day, and he tweeted out, "Turns out my inner crab got the better of me with TV producer in 09. Unforgivable. Jay Stewart, correct, give me kicking." At least he admits it, right? I mean, we have all had bad days. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was cranky sometimes. Alright guys, we've made it to number 3 and we have Joan Rivers. The comedian legend was once a permanent guest on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, but she ended up landing a gig to have her very own late night show on Fox, and their friendship soon came to an end because of it. She made history for being the first woman to ever host a late night broadcast talk show, but it turned out to be a flop, and Carson felt betrayed by her because she left, so he banned her from returning to his, which I get. The ban even continued when Jay Leno took over in 1992 because Jay Leno was just trying to respect Carson's wishes. But in 2014, the ban was finally lifted by Jimmy Fallon when he did his premiere episode as the host of The Tonight Show. Taking over the number 2 spot is Adrian Brody. The actor completely shocked the audience with a joke that has gone down in history for being so inappropriate and offensive. Back in 2012, he was hosting SNL and he went onto the stage to introduce the rapper Sean Paul, but he wore a wig of fake dreadlocks and attempted this horrible Jamaican accent. The joke gone wrong was enough for him to get banned from ever returning to the show. Not to mention, the producer Lorne Michaels is said to hate when celebrities go unscripted on his show and do things that haven't first been approved or at least discussed, because I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have approved that joke. Winning the number 1 spot is Sinead O'Connor. The singer-songwriter first rose to fame in the 80s and has always been controversial controversial and open about her political views and beliefs. But she's another person who got banned from SNL for pulling a stunt that went too far and did not have people laughing like the show's intentions are. While she was singing a cover of Bob Marley's War, she took out a picture of Pope John Paul II and started reciting the word evil. And then she went on to rip it in half and say, "Fight the real enemy." The entire studio was shocked and left in complete silence, probably feeling super uncomfortable, not really knowing how to react to something like that. I'm confused. I don't understand. Starting us off at number 10 is Steven Seagal. If you thought he was the type of guy who wouldn't share his negative opinions about a topic, then you thought wrong. He likes to express these emotions through humor, but one time his jokes did not win him laughs. They actually got him banned from Saturday Night Live. Back in 1991, he hosted the show and received some pretty harsh ratings for his appearance. His jokes rubbed people the wrong way, but apparently there was also reports that he was just difficult to work with. Some crew members said they disliked working with him and that he was the worst host to ever appear on the show. So the actor and martial arts guru got banned from the show altogether. Moving on to number 9, we got Vince Vaughn. Many people would say that he's a great actor, but rumor has it there are less charming things about him when he is not on our screens. Everyone is allowed their own opinion, and apparently the actor made it clear that he doesn't really approve of gay marriage and same-gender relationships in general. And he revealed some of these comments while doing an interview on the Ellen DeGeneres show. As you know, Ellen is happily married to another woman and is a huge influence in the LGBTQ community. Now, there's been no confirmation from the source herself, but reports were made saying that after the interview, he was banned from returning to her show for a few years. Climbing into our number 8 spot is Gary Busey. He's a man full of talent, but his erratic behavior does not always sit well with others ever since his tragic motorcycle accident that ended with severe brain damage back in 1988. Throughout different interviews, he's shown fans that he has multiple personalities, which some people might get a kick out of, but Howard Stern is not one of those people. Gary got banned from the Howard Stern show after one of his interviews where he displayed this wild and bizarre behavior. He picked up Howard's co-host in this weird bear hug stunt, and he also wrestled Howard himself to the floor. In the middle of the interview. Just put him on the floor. Howard has said he felt some guilt banning him from returning to his show, but admits that he just simply cannot handle it. And at number 7 is Chris Brown. The singer flew into a rage on the set of Good Morning America, so it's not all that surprising that they wouldn't want him back on their show. It was back in 2011 when the singer didn't like the question they asked him, so he decided to walk out during the middle of the on-air interview. But he didn't just walk out gracefully, he left the interview, went backstage, ripped off his shirt like the Hulk, and smashed a studio window. Tell me it's not a coincidence that all of this anger came from a question about his felony assault case against his ex-girlfriend Rihanna. I mean, dude, you're really not helping your case here by trying to show the world that you can control your anger. No offense. Cruising into number 6 is Heather Mills. This one runs a lot deeper than just having bad behavior or a bad first impression. She was banned from the Piers Morgan show because she cheated on her husband. You're probably wondering why he would care about her love life so much. Well, her husband is actually his best friend. So you can imagine that would put him in an uncomfortable situation with having her on the show for interviews. So reports say after she cheated on his best friend, he banned her from being a guest on his show. Apparently, he's made some comments about the situation and said that she's just another, I quote, gold digger chasing wealthy gentlemen. Halfway through at number 5 is Kelsey Grammer. It appears as though Piers Morgan might throw bans around like it's no big deal, or maybe he's just a really hard guy to please. He slapped a lifetime ban on the Frasier actor after he appeared on Piers Morgan Live. What happened was, during his appearance, the network showed a photograph of his ex-wife, Camille Grammer, after they promised that the subject of his relationship would not be discussed on air. He responded to the photos by walking off set before he even made his full appearance. So they gave him a lifetime ban. Some people said it was a dramatic reaction, while others say the ban was a little over dramatic. So, what do you guys think? Which was the dramatic part? The reaction to the photos or the lifetime ban? Moving along to number 4, we have Piers Morgan. Yes, the roles have reversed. He throws around these bans on other celebrities, but he himself got one from Rosie O'Donnell. Now, the two of them don't actually have any beef with each other. Rosie banned him from the talk show, The Rosie Show, out of loyalty to one of her friendships. Turns out she's a good friend to Madonna, who got banned from Piers Morgan Live. I shared that story in our part 1 video. And since they are good friends, Rosie lashed back at Piers after finding out that Madonna got banned from his show and said that she was gonna ban him from hers. Rolling into our third spot is Chevy Chase. He was once a big star from the original Saturday Night Live cast back in 1975. Actually, he was one of the first. But he is also the first cast member to ever get banned from the show. The good news is, his ban came long after he had left the show on his own terms. He left the show after 2 successful years and then returned 8 different times to host Saturday Night Live. During his 8th time hosting though, he got officially banned from ever returning after he hit another cast member in the back of the head. I'm not laughing that he punched someone, I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. Will Ferrell reported him after he apparently witnessed the physical assault. But over the years, he has gone on better terms with the creator Lorne Michaels, and although he was banned from hosting, they did allow him back on the show for smaller appearances. Taking over our number 2 spot is Martin Lawrence. It seems like NBC has no problem banning celebrity talent from Saturday Night Live if they are not pleased with their experience. Even the hilarious actor-comedian was banned from the network after he used inappropriate language that they said could risk the show's ratings. In his open monologue back in 1994, he made a reference to the female genitalia and also said some curse words, both things that were obviously not in the original script. He was banned from the show, and fortunately for the network, the inappropriate monologue was edited in a way so that they could take some of that out, so it didn't damage the ratings all that much, but some of it was still left in. Earning the number 1 spot on our list is Bobcat Goldthwait. This one takes the cake. It's honestly pretty crazy, and I'm surprised I didn't know about it before researching for my list. Back in 1994, the comedian went on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during the interview, he got infuriated when he heard that the Arsenio Hall show was being cancelled. But he took his anger to a whole different level, and during the middle of the interview, he stood up, took out some lighter fluid, soaked his interview chair, and set the chair on fire. Maybe just the slightest bit dramatic, but to no surprise, he was banned appearing on the show ever again. He actually got fined, and he was forced to make a public service announcement in regards to fire safety.
At number 10, Mark Summers. When it comes to talk shows, sometimes you can never predict what's going to happen. These shows are often used to catch up with a celebrity and just talk about life and whatnot, but sometimes these conversations can turn into brawls when the wrong thing is said, and this is pretty much what happened between Burt Reynolds and Mark Summers in 1994 when they were both guests on Jay Leno's talk show. The two men got into a pretty heated brawl after some jokes were made that rubbed them the wrong way. Essentially, Mark Summers made a comment about how he was still married while Burt at the time was going through a divorce, and it made him pretty upset. In retaliation, Burt threw some water at Mark, and that's what sparked the fight. It gets to the point where Jay Leno just can't keep the show together because his guests were fighting so much, and producers went so far as to bring out pies for Mark and Burt to make it look like this fight was staged. After this, people got talking, and some people came to the conclusion that this brawl was uncalled for, and since Mark technically started it, he felt the most backlash. Soon fans started to notice that Mark just wasn't making it big in Hollywood anymore, and some believe that this bad press that came from this fight is what caused Mark's career to suffer. At number 9, Tom Cruise. Now I know you guys are going to come for me in the comments saying, Bree, Tom Cruise's career isn't destroyed, he's doing just fine. Yes, I know that. However, his career and public image did take a beating after his interview with Matt Lauer in 2005, where he made comments about mental health, psychiatry, and for his criticisms of actress Brooke Shields. All of this was caused by Tom's belief in Scientology and the fact that he doesn't believe in medication or therapy. While on the Today Show, Tom and Matt had the discussion about how the actor criticized Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants for her postpartum depression, and he tried to shut down anything that Matt would say to defend psychiatry, also going on to say, quote, "You don't know the history of psychiatry, I do," end quote. Between that and his stance on Scientology, he lost a lot of popularity, leading to some box office bombs that affected his career. Now before I carry on with the video, I would like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also check out my gaming channel Viper Girl if Minecraft content piques your interest. I've got lots of fun stuff going on over there, and I upload every single day, so come check it out and subscribe while you're there. At number 8, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was riding a pretty good wave back when he was the star of 2.5 Men, but after doing an interview on 2020, things took a turn and his career pretty much got destroyed. Everything sort of came crashing down for him after that interview, where he ranted about the 2.5 Men creator Chuck Lorre. This interview was pretty chaotic and all over the place, with Charlie waving his hands about frantically and even going so far as to call Chuck a turd and a clown. This became a media feeding frenzy as they labeled him as crazy, and they just pushed him to his breaking point. As a result of some of the comments Charlie made during the interview, he was fired from 2.5 Men, and that was a pretty big deal since he had been pulling in about $1 million per episode. The actor pretty much hit rock bottom after that, making this a lesson to remind you to watch what you say. At number 7, Wilmer Valderrama. When That 70s Show actor Wilmer Valderrama was a guest on Howard Stern's show back in 2006, he had the potential to use the experience to his advantage and help his career, but instead he did the opposite and caused some damage instead. While on the show, the actor shared a little too much information with Stern and exposed a lot of the details about people he had slept with. Wilmer revealed that he had slept with Mandy Moore and even described the experience even though no one asked for that. He also rated his relationship with actress Jennifer Love Hewitt even though, once again, nobody asked. Wilmer really just exposed a lot of personal information about himself, but faced scrutiny because of how the people he talked about were impacted. A lot of people said that the comments he made were uncalled for, uncomfortable, and inappropriate. Years later, in 2010, the actor apologized for what he said during the interview, but the damage was already done. His career wasn't the same, and the people he slept with were pretty mad about having their business exposed like that too. At number 6, Addison Rae. Back in April of this year, TikTok star Addison Rae faced backlash after her appearance on The Tonight Show. The influencer was invited on the show to perform a handful of viral TikTok dances, and though it seemed innocent and unproblematic, this is the internet and there is always a problem. Addison, as well as Jimmy Fallon, started facing backlash because no credit was given to the people who created the dances that Addison performed. A lot of people watched this bit on the show and thought that it wasn't fair that Addison got to come on to the show and essentially take credit for the work of other TikTok creators, and so fans took to the internet to advocate for those who lost out on the notoriety of their dances. The Tonight Show producers, as well as Fallon himself, recognized that they deserved to have their voices heard, and so they got their opportunity, but for Addison Rae, this bad publicity just hurt her public image for a while. But honestly, this isn't anything new because these TikTokers are always getting into some kind of mess anyway. At number 5, Trisha Paytas. Trisha Paytas seems to be in some kind of drama or controversy every couple of months. Most recently, the YouTuber was caught in some drama with their former podcast co-host, Ethan Klein. The pair had a podcast called Frenemies, and honestly, the title said it all. They had beef in the past and decided to make a podcast out of it, so really the whole thing was doomed from the start. But I digress. Basically, they got into yet another fight, and Trisha decided that they needed to quit the podcast. After leaving, the quote-unquote truth started to come out about the behind-the-scenes drama regarding the podcast. Most of the conflict had to do with money and how much each person contributed to the show and whatnot. But this debate got heated, exposed videos were made, and talk show careers came to an end. Even though their career isn't completely destroyed simply because Trisha won't let it die, it wasn't good for their image or credibility, but honestly, things are always rocky with Trisha, so even if we think that their career is over, they won't think so. At number 4, Wendy Williams. With the drama surrounding Britney Spears and her conservatorship, everyone seems to want to put their 2 cents in and contribute to the conversation, and the criticisms being thrown towards Britney's family, especially her father. Most of this criticism happens on the internet from Britney's fans, but talk show host Wendy Williams took things one step further and made her comments about the situation on air of her show. She was discussing Britney's ongoing court battle with the audience, and she made comments about how Britney's parents had the public fooled into thinking that they were doing what was best for the pop star. After learning more information as to what's really been going on in that situation, we know that things are much more rocky than we once thought, and because this is so unfair for Britney, this got Wendy pretty heated because she followed up her criticisms of the Spears family by saying, quote, "Death to all of them," end quote. This comment went a little too far for people's likings, and Wendy faced backlash for it. The comment had to be edited out of the show, and there were a handful of people demanding that Wendy apologize to Britney's family for what she said. Wendy ended up getting a lot of bad press for weeks following the incident, and as we all know by now, for a celebrity, bad press is a very dangerous thing to have. At number 3, Sia. Grammy-winning artist Sia started facing pretty serious backlash following the release of her feature film Music, starring Maddie Ziegler. The film, which is about a young non-verbal girl on the autism spectrum, starred Maddie Ziegler as the film's protagonist, and even though Maddie has worked closely with Sia for many years, fans had to put their foot down and call the singer out on her casting choice. Because the role went to someone who wasn't on the autism spectrum, she started facing backlash. The singer got a chance to clear the air while doing a sit-down interview recently, but instead of owning up to everything and apologizing to fans, she instead doubled down, which really made things worse for her. While she understood the feelings of those who were angry with her, Sia defended her casting choice by saying, quote, "There's no way I could have used someone of Maddie's level of functioning to play her. I can't do a project without her," end quote. This interview, combined with her harsh defense of the film on Twitter, made for a storm of backlash, and things got so bad that she had to leave social media to avoid the scrutiny. While her career isn't necessarily over, she has lost a lot of popularity. At number 2, Mark Wahlberg. In 2013, while appearing as a guest on The Graham Norton Show, Mark Wahlberg caused quite a scene that greatly affected his public image. Essentially, Mark went through his entire guest appearance while severely under the influence, and he made quite a fool of himself. While on the show, Mark kept interrupting other guests, touching people, acting pretty disruptive, and even fell asleep on the couch. It became one interview that Graham wanted to forget because of how awkward and uncomfortable the entire experience was. This moment went down in TV history as one of the worst interviews ever simply because of how chaotic it was. In the aftermath of the whole ordeal, Mark's public image declined for a while because he made a fool of himself on TV, and not every fan is into that kind of behavior. And finally, at number 1, Joe Rogan. The pandemic and the COVID vaccines are still a very hot topic amongst many people. There are opinions from opposite sides of the spectrum, and many times uninformed people spread misinformation that can really hurt others. This is how Joe Rogan started facing backlash after he made some comments about the vaccines that were incredibly untrue and pretty damaging. On his podcast, Joe was talking about the COVID vaccines, and he made a comment saying that young people didn't need to get vaccinated, saying, quote, "If you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I say no. If you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, I don't think you need to worry about this," end quote. His comments had to be fact-checked by one of the world's top doctors, where they went on to say that what Joe said was untrue, and that no matter what your age or health status is, it's important to consider getting vaccinated if that's best for you. Because of what Joe said, he started facing backlash, and people started calling him an anti-vaxxer. He had to set the record straight that he wasn't an anti-vaxxer, but people still don't believe him. In this day and age, your views on the pandemic and everything that comes with it can make or break you, so this backlash surely wasn't good for Joe. Now I want you guys to tell me about the worst job that you've ever had, and what made it so bad. I can't imagine a job being worse than being a celebrity because of how much drama they have to deal with on a daily basis, but there's probably a handful of other jobs out there that suck big time as well.
Coming in number 10 today, we have Lea Michele. It's fair to say that Lea Michele is a celebrity whose reputation precedes her. The star who shot to fame after landing the lead role as Rachel Berry in Glee back in 2009, and since she's been the center of several scandals. Recently, during her appearance on The Tonight Show, after the show aired, she would spark some fresh backlash after she could be seen moving Sadie Sink out of the way so she could take center stage. When Lea was announced on the show, she would walk onto the stage and she would briefly touch Sadie's arm before reaching across to shake Jimmy's hand. Even though Drake was closer to her than Jimmy, she stepped forward to shake his hand and awkwardly stood in front of Sadie until Sadie decided to move aside to give Lea her spot. In addition, soon after the introductions, Jimmy told Sadie to take a seat on the right of him and Lea to the left, and Sadie had to take a step back to accommodate Lea before crossing over to the stage so she could get to her designated spot. The situation did not go unnoticed, as soon fans would start to praise Sadie for being humble by the way she reacted to Lea's disrespectful and immature attitude. Number 9, Emma Roberts. Back in 2017, podcast host Jane Hunt and Robert Ackerman sparked a viral rumor that actor Lea Michele can't read or write. Since the podcast, fans have been pointing out moments that prove the actress couldn't read, and up until now it's pretty much just been a huge speculation. However, during an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, Emma Roberts decided to play coy about whether her friend Lea Michele could read, and by doing so, she would reveal that the rumors are actually true. During the interview, Andy Cohen would say to Emma that the biggest misconception people have about Lea Michele is that she can't read. Instead of shutting down the rumor, Emma decided to skirt around the question with a joke and said, "Well, we've not been in a book club together." While Michelle did try to confirm in a tweet back in 2018 that she can actually read, Emma's joke would definitely prove otherwise. Even though Emma did try to keep things sweet and try to offer some sweet support to her friend by shouting out her Broadway show, the part about Lea not being able to read definitely didn't go unnoticed. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming in number 8, we have Whoopi Goldberg. 2022 was filled with controversy for Whoopi Goldberg as she continues to rebuild her image in the spotlight. It appears that the crew at the ABC daytime favorite show has appeared to be lending a helping hand towards the star. On January 4th, joined by her former former talk show members on an episode on The View, she took the spot of the moderator on the show, meaning she was in charge of teeing up links and starting debates and conversations. But Whoopi's prominence on the show didn't stop there, as an insider would soon reveal that the crowd was also encouraged to cheer her on the loudest. As the crowd was warmed up by comedian Regina DeSico, specifically, she told everyone to give a loud applause to Whoopi and then continue clapping for the other host. It seemed like the crew wanted Whoopi to get a standing ovation to make her feel like she was the star of the show. She also carried herself as if she had all the authority on the show, and she even was seen talking over the other co-hosts and interrupting them, which isn't exactly a great way to start her comeback. But if someone has to encourage the crowd to cheer for you the loudest, it's a pretty clear sign that your time in the industry is almost up. Number 7, Chris Harrison. Chris Harrison's time away from the Bachelor franchise has really started to take a toll on him. More than a year after he defended a contestant's previous racist behavior in an infamous extra interview, the TV personality has finally addressed all the controversy in a debut episode of the most dramatic podcast ever. In the episode, he would say, "I think I need time to figure out what I want to say. How I felt that mistake doesn't reflect who I am or what I stand for." While his extra comment marked the beginning of his Bachelor downfall, Chris has been left feeling heartbroken, gutted, and embarrassed, and he stated that the backlash took a toll in more than one way. In the podcast, Chris would also state that his comments made him feel sick and worry about his children, loved ones, and family, and since he decided to step down from his role on The Bachelor, he hasn't been able to watch the show, but he has been keeping an eye on the ratings and believes the show is declining in ratings because he's no longer on the show, and that hurts him a bit. Number 6, Sam Smith. Rumor has it that Adele and Sam Smith may have more in common than just their heavenly voices, as fans are speculating that they are actually the same person. During an episode of the Drew Barrymore show, Sam would reveal the craziest rumor they've ever heard about themselves, and it was that they were actually secretly the Hello singer in drag. In the episode, Sam would say, "Everyone seems to think that I'm Adele in drag because we've never been in the same room together. And if you slow down her voice, it sounds maybe a bit like mine. So people think we're the same person and I'm just in drag right now." While some fans in the past have made theories on social media, like one person tweeting in 2018, "Anyone notice Adele isn't at the Grammys this year? It's because Adele and Sam Smith are the same person and you never see them both in the same place at the same time." Others have even begun to mock the singer on Twitter, suggesting Sam made up the rumor, with one person tweeting, "Sam Smith says the craziest rumor they've heard about themselves is that they're secretly Adele in drag. Never heard that one before." And honestly, wherever the rumor stemmed from, someone definitely owes Adele an apology for this one. Number 5, James Corden. On January 2nd, 2023, James Corden appeared on the Drew Barrymore show, and James would be asked why he was leaving the CBS talk show after what would be 8 years on air. James would then recall a story from 2 summers ago when he was shooting his Amazon Prime video series Mammals. In an interaction with his son Max, who was now 10 at the time, it made him realize that he wanted to spend more summers with his son because he only had 6 more left. While James said he didn't want to cancel the show, he would then blame the situation on his son. However, the timing of him deciding to leave his show just seems more like a career move and reputation thing rather than a reason to spend more time with his son and family, because since entering into the spotlight, James has been a part of several controversies, such as back in October, the comedian's reputation took a huge hit after Keith McNally banned James from his restaurant in New York City and labeled him as a tying cretin of a man who was the most abusive customer he has ever seen, after James was caught yelling at a server who got his wife's egg yolk omelet wrong. Number 4, Chelsea Handler. While Chelsea didn't seem to end her career this year on a talk show, she did decide it was a good idea to mock several huge controversial topics from last year during her monologue at the 2023 Critics' Choice Awards. While the star went on to reference things like the Don't Worry Darling press tour, the Roe vs. Wade Supreme Court overturning. When announcing the cast of The Bear and that they were at the ceremony, Chelsea would then joke about the drama surrounding James Corden from a New York restaurant and how he showed us working in the restaurant industry is miserable. Chelsea then went on to mention that the controversial celebrity diet culture is just insane, and while Chelsea was trying to find a way to have a great time and make everyone feel comfortable, welcomed, and feel like they belonged and to be at the show, she definitely took things a little too far, and all she did was put herself into a little bit of a hole that's going to be difficult difficult to climb out of to save her reputation and career, and not to mention just a couple of days before, she would make an appearance on The Tonight Show where she would confess that she didn't realize that the sun and the moon weren't the same thing until she was 40. Yeah, let that one sink in. Number 3, Eddie Murphy. The original script for Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home originally had a large role written specifically for Eddie Murphy, who at the time was a box office star coming off the heels of a successful film, Beverly Hills Cops. And additionally, Eddie was interested in appearing in the movie as he was a big Star Trek fan. He even met with the producer, Harvey Benner, and director, Leonard Nimoy, to discuss the part, which he was ultimately decided to not take. When he turned down the role, he originally said it was because he thought making the movie Golden Child would be a better fit for his career, but then recently on his appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, he would offer up another explanation when he said, yeah, you know which one it is. It's the one where they go to San Francisco and they get the whales. I was going to be in that one. I met with them. They met when they got to San Francisco, and I said no. I want to go beam up and be on the ship, so I didn't do it. This definitely has some die-hard Star Trek fans screaming as they would have done anything to play this part in the film, and Eddie just turned it down because he wouldn't be beamed up into the ship. Number 2, Prince Harry. On January 8th, Prince Harry made his very first TV appearance since his highly anticipated memoir Spare was leaked. In a pre-recorded interview with the British anchor Tom Bradby, Harry would address some of the most explosive claims in his book that included his confession to taking substances and his fractured relationship with his family. While the star said he was grateful to have the chance to tell his story in his memory and said he'd still be part of the royal family, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to share the story. Many fans of the royal family have stated that Prince Harry definitely should have kept this book hidden in the closet with his dirty laundry, as he and Meghan have been slammed by newspaper columns and the media for a slew of lies that have caused them to mock the royal family as they try to move on and claim to live their own lives. Which has left us all to wonder when this is all just going to stop. Family feuds happen and it's normal. What's not normal is that you bring your family drama to the light and try to claim they wronged you without bringing any key facts to your story. Like, how do we know it's true at this point? And coming in number 1 today, we have Piers Morgan. Seems like Piers Morgan doesn't know how to stay out of the hot seat, as recently he would find himself surrounded by controversy once again, as this time he chose to go against the Queen of Pop after Madonna posted a video announcing her next tour. Morgan on his Talk TV show then said that Madonna, who is 64 years old, is a hot mess, and he even went out of his way to express that she should be put out of the pasture. He also took the opportunity to criticize the fact that she still tries to be a foxy kitten even though she's over 60. After his show, he then decided to bring his rant to Twitter, where he said he thinks Madonna has become the biggest cringe-making fiasco in the entertainment world. Fans definitely weren't happy with Morgan's words, and many just continue to call him out on his insensitive, misogynistic, and even labeled him as a cruel person for his words.
In spot number 10 is the drama between Caitlyn Jenner and Ellen DeGeneres. It was back in 2015 when Caitlyn went on Ellen's show for an interview, and it ended with an ongoing feud between them. During the interview, Ellen asked her opinion on same-sex marriage, and Caitlyn said that there was a time in her life that she did not support it, but now she does. Ellen fired back immediately though, and made it seem like Caitlyn was saying that she does not support the LGBTQ+ community. The tension between them seemed to go past the show because Ellen talked about it on the Howard Stern show. She told Howard that Caitlyn was unfairly passing judgment about gay people and same-sex marriage. Caitlyn later came out with her side of the story and said she was not happy that Ellen painted her in that light. She claimed that she talked to Ellen on the phone prior to going on the show in the first place, and that they already discussed her changing opinion on same-sex marriage. So when Ellen flipped the switch on her during the live interview, Caitlyn was really upset. Cruising into number 9 is the Wendy Williams lip drama. She caused a big stir online after she talked about the Golden Globes on her talk show. It was because she started making comments about the awards show and began talking about the Oscar-nominated actor Joaquin Phoenix. But while talking about him, she mocked the scar that he has above his lip. She said that when he shaves his mustache, he has a hairline fracture, and then she started demonstrating with her hand how his lip scar looks like a cleft lip. People were were furious and said she was insensitive not only to the actor, but also those who have cleft lips. Even Cher was furious and had a lot to say about it on Twitter. One of her tweets said an apology does not make up for what she did, and the other one said that she should be fired for making fun of something that is very painful for some people. Wendy did issue an apology following all the backlash, in case you're wondering, but is that enough? I don't know. She still has her job, so I guess so. In spot number 8, we have the time when Paris Hilton called out David Letterman. I did an entire list of celebrities who tried to warn us about David Letterman, so there is a handful of scandals that I could have used, but the one with Paris is what sparked the majority of them to be revealed in the first place. In 2020, Paris did a vulnerable documentary called This Is Paris, where she opened up about different times that she was belittled during interviews by other people in the industry, David being one of them. One video clip surfaced online showing him bugging her about her time in jail, which happened years before. He kept making very insensitive jokes about it, and even after she asked him to stop, he wouldn't. Paris revealed that he was purposely trying to humiliate her because he agreed not to bring up the jail thing before she even went on the show in the first place. After the clip went viral, a handful of other clips with different female celebrities surfaced, showing him belittling them and also being sexually inappropriate towards them. Taking over number 7 is Steve Harvey's note. He was making headlines in 2017 when a memo he sent off to his staff members was leaked online, showing him in a different light. People are used to seeing his very kind and goofy side, but apparently he is more entitled when he is off camera. The memo was sent from Harvey to his staff and basically told them all not to approach him. It said, "Do not come to my dressing room unless invited. Do not approach me while I'm in the makeup chair unless I ask to speak with you directly. Do not take offense to the new way of doing business." Turns out he was revamping things for season 5 of his show, and with a new crew, he wanted new rules. After the memo went viral, he decided to bail on the rap party for his own show. Probably because the staff all were terrified to even look at him. What do you guys think? Does he have a right to say that in a staff memo? Like, do you think it was too much? Do you think it's valid? Let me know. At number 6, we have James Corden facing backlash for allegedly being racist. This scandal caused a huge debate because some people felt he should be cancelled while others saw no issue with what he was doing. I will let you be your own judge. If you haven't seen his show, he does a segment called Spill Your Guts or Fill Your Guts. He fills the table with disgusting foods like cow tongue, different bugs, 1,000-year-old eggs, sardine smoothies, things like that. If his celebrity guest does not want to answer the question, they have to eat whatever is in front of them. He's been doing it for years, but this year he started taking heat after people said some of the foods that he refers to as disgusting are very common in Asian cultures. People said that the segment is culturally offensive and insensitive because many Asian Americans are consistently bullied and mocked for their native foods. James was quick to apologize though and be very understanding, saying that he will not do the segment and he will make appropriate changes to his show. We've made it halfway and we have Megyn Kelly vs. Jane Fonda. In September 2017, what started out as a normal interview led to some ongoing tension between these two ladies. They were having a normal interview which seemed to be going well until Megyn started asking Jane about aging and plastic surgery. It seemed to strike a nerve with her because she became irritated immediately and did not want to talk about it. She fired back at her saying, "We really want to talk about that now?" Then she changed the subject and began talking about her movie, Our Souls at Night. The interview just wasn't the same after that. You could feel like some awkward tension between them. Jane later joked about it months later on the Today Show, and Megyn replied by saying the actress is fixated on the exchange and said it was part of Jane's poor me routine. Things just seemed to get even worse from there. Just went on a spiral and a rant, and it's just not good. Rolling into spot number 4, we have Sharon Osbourne gets fired. Well, she was forced to step away, so you could say she kind of quit. Things turned sour quick when she went on the show and defended Piers Morgan, who gave his opinion about Meghan Markle's big interview regarding the royal family. His opinion was that he didn't believe Meghan's very serious claims. Sharon defended him, saying that he has a right to speak about his views and opinion, but that just caused issues for her because it came off like she was kind of agreeing with him. She tried to defend herself, but it ended up turning into a very heated argument between her and one of her other show hosts. The show had to cut to commercial and bleep out a bunch of F-bombs because the fight got so intense. The show was on a hiatus before it was announced that they would be moving forward without her. The show's statement said that her behavior towards her co-hosts did not align with their values for a respectful workplace. With that being said, at number 3 is Piers Morgan gets fired. You already heard the gist of what happened, but there was a lot of drama that led to him quitting the show, but media outlets say he was forced to step away. I feel like that's a nice way of saying, you're fired, I'm gonna give you opportunity to quit, if not, you're fired. He has been adored on the talk show Good Morning Britain, but then ITV announced they were getting a lot of complaints about Piers and they had to investigate them. Turns out the show received 41,000 complaints after Piers said he did not believe a word that Meghan Markle said in her Oprah Winfrey interview about the royal family. If you missed that very shocking interview, Meghan revealed how her mental health was negatively affected by the royal family and brought up certain incidents which were extremely racist and insensitive. Piers was open about the fact that he personally did not believe her claims. He ended up walking away from the show, which seemed to be a mutual agreement with the network either way, because they could not defend or protect his comments. Moving on to number 2, we have Jimmy Kimmel's insensitive comment. During one of his episodes in 2013, he offended the Chinese community around the world after making an insensitive joke. During one of his segments, a child suggested that harming everyone in China as a solution to dealing with America's growing debt. Jimmy responded to it by saying, "That's an interesting idea." The statement enraged a lot of people, even if it was meant to be a joke or sarcasm, and people online were demanding an apology from him. Eventually, Jimmy released a statement saying, "I thought it was obvious that I didn't agree with that statement, but apparently it wasn't. So I just want to say I am sorry, I apologize. It was certainly not my intent to upset anyone." I feel like he just chose to use sarcasm at a very bad time. Like, sarcasm either hits or it misses. Earning the number 1 spot is the feud between Dakota Johnson and Ellen DeGeneres. This has gone down as one of the most iconic and cringeworthy moments in talk show history. In 2019, a feud sparked between the two of them after Dakota went on her show to do an interview. At the time, they had already had this ongoing debate on whether or not Ellen had been invited to her birthday party. In 2018, Dakota admitted she did not invite Ellen because she didn't know if she would want to be invited, so in 2019 she did invite her. But Ellen did not show up to the party and also did not give any explanation why. So when Dakota went on her talk show, Ellen brought it up and accused her of not inviting her to her birthday again. The tension was immediately super uncomfortable as Dakota starts bringing other people into it. She said, I quote, "Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen. Ask everybody. Ask Jonathan, your producer." She literally then points to the producer and calls him out during the interview. The producer revealed that she was in fact invited, and then it was super awkward because Ellen didn't even say why she didn't go, and then the audience just had to sit there and watch the whole thing unfold.